This is Plague Inc. Evolved, a great game that I started playing a few years back. And like I think most players, I started by beating every Plague on casual. Now this wasn't too bad, but then I tried to skip ahead to Mega Brutal and well, that's when things went horrifically wrong. Now you can go into YouTube and you'll find a lot of tutorial videos on playthroughs of Mega Brutal runs. The thing is, even if you replicate them down to the smallest detail, you're still likely to lose most of the time. Now this is not because Mega Brutal has huge amounts of RNG, it's more to do with the fact that every playthrough is going to be sort of unique. See, a lot of the time you're responding to what the game is giving you rather than just following a set of previously calculated moves. Experienced players understand that you really need to learn the fundamentals and mechanics of the game to be able to beat it on higher difficulty settings. And that's kind of the purpose of this video, and maybe even series depending on how I feel about this particular video. Two quick caveats though. I am going to assume you've never played this before, so if you want to skip to the playthrough itself, I'll put a timestamp right here. And also, I will be playing on casual. Now, some players might consider this to be almost a waste of time, but I actually recommend it because it allows you to make a lot of mistakes without you instantly losing the game. So it is a good way to learn the fundamentals. Alrighty, let's talk about the UI. We've got disease, which we've got our transmission, our symptoms, our abilities. We'll go into more detail of how these things work when I play the game. What I want you to notice here though is infectivity, severity and lethality. Three very important variables in the game. Now infectivity is how fast and how far we spread, how easily we spread. And so we're going to want this to be as high as possible. Alright, we're going to want to build this as quickly as we can, but we're going to want to keep our severity low. And eventually, at some point, we're going to want to pull the trigger and get our lethality up as high as possible, because obviously the goal of the game is to kill everybody on Earth. Now, the higher severity gets, the faster that people will start to develop a cure. This is why we want to keep severity low. The other thing is if lethality gets too high too quickly, we kill off all the sick people before they can infect new people. Our disease dies off and we lose the game. So we don't want to kick this into action until we've got everybody infected. Well, until we've got most of the world infected. Now we control these three variables by unlocking various traits, by evolving certain things. Transmission, symptoms and abilities all have an effect on our three variables. Now if we go back to the main screen, we can click on World, which gives us the cure progress. It also tells us how many people are infected. 3 columns here. All these countries are not infected yet. Middle column is countries that are infected. And of course the skull, how many countries are completely eradicated. Research, look, I'll talk more about this in future videos. It doesn't really matter for now. Finally, we've got our middle console here, which is either the entire world, if I click on the C, or if I pick a country, like New Zealand for instance, it gives us some information regarding that specific country. The infected in that country and the dead. What's useful for us is also these little icons here. So this country for instance is rich and it is urban. So if we find we're struggling to infect that country, we simply go to the disease tab and we unlock things for rich and urban, which drug resistance would help us for wealthy countries, rich countries, and I believe it's rodents to get us into urban countries. So, and of course you can also do air and water to try and get us into that country as well, because they do have an airport and a seaport. That's what those two icons mean. What I want you to take notes of, very important, some of these countries, for example Greenland, only has a seaport. Madagascar also does, and so does the Caribbean, as well as some of the countries here only have seaports. But particularly Greenland is a tough one. We want to always make sure we get into Greenland before we pull the trigger on fatality. On lethality. Because this is the country that will ruin your games if you're not careful. Alrighty, we are playing as Bacteria, because it's the first on the list, and I figure it's a good place to start. In terms of genes, I'm not going to really worry about them, because you don't actually need any genes to beat this thing. Trust me. We'll be playing on casual. Now I'm going to click this 7 times, whatever name it lands on, that's what we'll choose. putrid discharge. That is horrible. But let's play. Now, where you want to start does kind of matter. On casual, not so much. You can start practically anywhere and you should be able to win. You can make your life a lot more difficult if you pick the wrong country, but I'll be starting in France, and the reason is because it's European. There's an airport and a seaport, and it's nice and central. That's kind of the strategy. Is you want those things. Also, you might go for a place that is highly populated. I mean, there's 77 million people in there, which is more than enough. But a place like China has 1.6 billion or something like that. So that's another viable strategy should you wish. But generally speaking, the general consensus is Europe. Right, let's hit play. Now, the very first thing we're going to do, as soon as we've grabbed that DNA, is go to transmission, and we're going to get water 1. We want to start. Our first goal is to head into Greenland. Trust me, you want to get that over with as quickly as you can. Speed up the game and get some points. So we want to get cold 1 as soon as we can. And we want to get all of these. Okay, this is your special ability. Every plague has one. Bacterias is bacterial resilience. Create a bacterial shell to protect against all climates. So it's a bit like getting cold 1 and heat, cold resistance and heat resistance. But you will need all of these to make a difference. You'll need at least 2. I generally go for all 3. All we can do now is wait to get more DNA. Okay, we'll get this. I think the next thing we're going to get is water 2. Actually, let's get air 1. We do need to get air 1. Then we'll get water 2 and then cold 2. That was quick. Airplanes couldn't be infected, and then 10 seconds later they could be. And we should be getting into other countries soon. We're not yet, but we should be soon. I think 12 points will be enough to get the next upgrade. The next evolution. Hang on. There we go. I want that water too, but I think might as well get this. To get water 2. Which, hang on, how many points was that again? That was 17. There we go. Now we're spreading into other countries, which is great. Lots of countries. Give me lots of countries. If it ever feels like you if the bubbles start to shrink and there's lots of them on the screen, you can't get to them, do not be afraid to pause the game. We can't afford to waste any of those bubbles. That's 17, which is coming up soon. We're almost in all the continents. There we go, let's get water 2. And cold 2. Hang on, how much is cold 2? 15 DNA points. Rash. Now, whenever a symptom evolves, you want to read up about it if you don't know what all of your symptoms are. Because we are trying to keep our severity as low as possible, and we do not want to build on lethality yet. We don't want to pull that trigger until enough people are infected. Okay, we need... Oh, we've already got that. We need cold 2. 15 points. And we're probably going to need bacterial resilience as well, just to get into Greenland, but I don't know for certain. Okay, we're in Australia. That's good. And look at that. That extra bit of cold 2 helped us a lot, weirdly enough. So these are not cold countries. Okay, let's pause. All of a sudden we're spreading so much more. How many countries are we in? Almost the whole world. We'll give it a little bit more time than I want to Here we go. We're in Greenland. Excellent. Beautiful. Still a lot of countries we're not in. Okay, what I'd like to show you. There's not a lot to go. But notice that to get into all of these countries, all we had to do, literally, was 2 colds, 2 of these guys, transmissions, 1 air, and 2 waters. There's literally 6 clicks. Okay, 6 things that we needed to evolve to spread to almost the entire planet. Alright? Now, to get into those hot countries, I am going to get, although we probably wouldn't need to, I am going to get heat 1. Essentially, this is the point where there we go. If we were having problems across the equator, you would get heat 1. If you're having problems across the poles, you would, well, you can't get more cold. You would look at what they are in terms of wealth and stuff like that. Are they urban or rural? In fact, let's take, for instance, this country right there. This is New Guinea, right? It says here that it is a wealthy country. Sorry, it's a poor country. It's a humid country. It's a hot country. Well, we've got... So we could get hot 2. Heat 2. They are a poor country, right? Poor country and a humid country. So we could also go into transmission. And given that they're a poor country, go for this one. Yeah, so they are, and is this for, there we go, especially in hot climates. We could get this guy also if we wanted to, but we shouldn't need to. You know what? We're going to get Air 2, that should help us. Even though there's no airport there, because we need to get into those 2 countries also. Actually, no, it's not air that we need. I'm going to get birds. Hang on, we want poor regions and birds. And we could get this. This is powerful. But I'm not going to worry too much because this should be all we need. There we go. All the countries are done, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, Morocco, sorry. Morocco isn't done yet. What do we need for Morocco? Birds. To get across the border, birds are the best way to go, but we're not going to worry. Because we just entered into there now, and the whole world is almost infected around this time. So we can start going for lethality. This is pretty cool. All we've got to do, the game has already evolved these things for us. So we'll pick that up because it'll be extra infectivity also, just to make sure we don't lose that. This is what we want. Total organ failure. Coma. Now what I want you to notice, severity is skyrocketing, which means they're going to start researching the heck out of this thing. I also want to go down this route because I want to show you necrosis is a very interesting symptom you can get, very useful. And what it is, watch as people start dying. Let's just say that before we could get all these people infected, which they are now, but let's just say that there were some people left uninfected when the rest of them died out. Now you might think, well, that's game over. You can't infect them if all their borders are closed and stuff. But not so, because with necrosis, corpses can infect people now. Okay. Now we want to do something about that cure just for points. We don't need to because this is casual, but we can evolve a couple of things here. This slows down their cure research. This guy here reshuffles our DNA, which drops the percentage a bit. You can also slow down cure research with symptoms. If you go along this tree here, this line here, in fact I'll show you, a lot of these things will slow down their research. We don't need to, because we've won. I mean, look at how fast that's dropping. Look at the amounts of points we're getting. Yeah, but I'm just saying, if you wanted to... 14, yeah, we can actually do a reshuffle. And we'll go along here to slow down even more. But, like I said, we don't actually need to. We're going to win no matter what happens now. This is just going for points now, you see. We'll do this just in case we get enough points for the third one, which I guarantee you we won't. Or we could actually. Let's, just for laughs, let's devolve some things and get some points. The only reason I can devolve, by the way, is because I've got a gene installed. I took a gene that allows me to gain points by devolving stuff. You wouldn't normally get that in the base game, but you wouldn't need it. Not in the base game, what am I saying? In the... yeah. You wouldn't need that normally. You don't need any genes to win this. But we've won, folks. Victory. So not a terrible score. Not that great, granted. I mean, we've only got 3 stars, I suppose. And I know for a fact you can finish this thing in under 365 days, because there is an achievement for that. But we did well. I mean, this was not difficult. The 2 things I'd like you to notice are, firstly, we did not have to worry about cure progress at all, because they were never going to cure us using the strategy we were using. The other thing is we didn't have to watch severity either, because we weren't unlocking any symptoms. Not until we needed to pull the trigger for lethality. Also note, when I pulled that trigger, I waited until most of the world was infected. Around 80% is the figure I generally go for, give or take. Depends on the difficulty that I'm playing on. The higher the difficulty, the longer you want to wait. Sort of the closer you want to cut it. Because you need to start killing people as soon as possible. It always turns into a race against time. Anyways, all of that having been said, these are the very basic fundamentals, the sort of the main points that I hope are takeaways for you. Going forward, we will explore deeper, get more complicated, but for now, this is good enough. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.